If you are someone who is really into logos, then I think that you are gonna love this bag. I'm just a regular girl who has an affinity for handbags and I'm not a millionaire, so I do really think about cost per wear of the items that I have and the opportunity cost. And the reason why I put mine in the con section is because of a certain season of life that I'm in. I am just in, I don't want to say quiet luxury, but I will say quiet luxury. I'm in my quiet luxury era. Everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are sitting down and talking all about the Goyard Artois MM Tote. I have had this tote for a few months now, and I wanted to do a sit down review, tell you guys the pros and the cons, because I have been wearing this for quite a bit and I feel like I have gathered all of my thoughts around it, whether or not it's worth it, whether you should get the St. Louis or the Anjou or the Artois. So if you want to see that, then just keep on watching. By the way, if you're new here, hi, hello, my name is Raisa. I usually do videos all about personal finances and lifestyle types of videos. So if you want to see more of that, then make sure you're subscribed down below. Okay, I thought we would do a bit of a history lesson before we get into the bag. I'm gonna put this down for a second and talk to you guys all about Goyard and the history of the brand. So Goyard is actually the oldest fashion house in the world. It's even older than Louis Vuitton, and it was founded in 1792. And back then they were manufacturing trunks and luggages. And today they're popular for their totes. They have many different styles of totes. As I mentioned, there is the Artois, the Anjou, the St. Louis, there's an Isabelle, and many, many more. I think that their most popular style is the Goyard St. Louis tote. And that one was actually designed to be more of a beach bag. So it is quite light and you can actually fold that bag and pack it in your suitcase. When I started to do my research about Goyard, I initially thought that I wanted the St. Louis tote. And most of the reason why I thought that was because it is the most accessible bag in terms of price. And when I say accessible, I just mean that it's the cheapest bag that the brand makes and not necessarily accessible for everyone, because I know that the price point is quite high for these totes. In terms of the popular styles that they have for totes, I already mentioned the St. Louis. The Anjou is similar to the St. Louis, except the lining is in leather. And there's also an Anjou mini, which is a very popular style right now, and it's actually kind of just a bucket bag style tote. And then the one that I have is the Goyard Artois MM Tote. So this is what the Artois looks like from afar. You may or may not be able to tell that it's the Artois, but there are some features about the bag that made me want to grab this style versus the other styles. So I will leave a link to the Goyard website down below if you guys are interested, so you can pick and choose which style and size works the best for you. Getting into when and how I bought this bag. So as I mentioned, I've had the Goyard Artois MM Tote for quite a few months now. I bought it when I went to Paris in the summertime, and it was one of my gifts to myself for my 30th birthday. Goyard doesn't have an e-commerce platform. They have a website, but they don't sell online, so there's no prices and you can't actually check out, but you can see what styles they do offer. So I kind of had to do a lot of research to see how much these bags actually are. So I will leave all of the prices down below for you as well. So going back to Paris, I knew I wanted the Artois MM Tote because the size that I wanted is kind of the middle of the two. There is a GM, which is quite large, and the PM just looks like a smaller handbag. So I thought that the MM was perfect. And also one of the biggest selling factors for me for buying this bag is actually the zippered closure. So the St. Louis doesn't have a zippered closure the way that this one does, and the Anjou doesn't either. So I live in a city and I commute, so I have to make sure that all of my things are secure, and I love that feature about this bag, and I'll kind of get more into it in the pros section of this video. The next feature that I really liked about this bag is the leather bits at the bottom of the bag. So you can see that the bag is reinforced with leather at the bottom, and I think that allows the bag to kind of hold its shape. So when I put this bag on a table, it doesn't collapse the way that the St. Louis would, and I think the Anjou does as well, because this one can actually support itself. So I really like that feature, and when I'm carrying it with my laptop and all of my heavy things in there, the bag doesn't sag down the way that the other totes would. So those were kind of the factors as to why I chose this bag specifically. And yeah, we'll talk all about the pros about this bag in the next section of the video. So going back to Paris, I knew that this is the bag that I wanted. However, I was scared about the lineup. So if you're on TikTok a lot or just like YouTube in general, people have been talking about the lines at Goyard. Goyard is a pretty, I want to say like understated, maybe that's not the right word. It flies under the radar, but it's getting more and more popular. So now that we're able to travel more, I've seen a lot more people who can purchase these bags in Europe or even in the States. And I was on TikTok doing some research, and everyone is saying that the lineups in Paris are so long and you might have to wait an hour or 2 hours. And that's not what I want to do with my time in Paris. And I kind of came to terms that if their lineup is really, really long, I might not get the bag. I was also going to Monaco in that same trip, so I was gonna try my luck in Monaco if I couldn't get the bag in Paris because of the lineups. To tell you guys the truth, the lineups in Paris, yes, they're very long, but I kind of figured out a bit of a hack. So if you haven't been to Paris before and are heading there soon, you essentially go down this one street and the main store is on the left side, and there is almost always a lineup. We went at around 2 p.m. And when I saw that, I kind of calculated that it might be an hour long wait. But then on the right side of the street is another Goyard, and there was no lineup. It's a smaller boutique, but there was no lineup there. And I decided to kind of try my luck there instead because I didn't have to wait. So there were about 3 sales associates. There was no one else in the store except for me. And they asked me what I wanted to see. And I asked them about the Artois MM Tote in the black and the green. They didn't have the green, so they got me this one. And then I also asked to see the St. Louis in the green in the GM. And I tried on both of them, and I actually didn't like the St. Louis in the GM because I felt that it was really, really big. And also the strap drop is not ideal, especially if you are using this bag in the wintertime. So you can see that the strap drop on the Artois is pretty good. You can get it on your shoulder pretty good, and it's not very restricting. Like you can see that there's still so much space there. So the St. Louis GM, even though it was a little bit bigger, it actually didn't have that big of a strap drop. So that's another feature of why I didn't want the GM St. Louis. And when I tried on both of them, I knew that this was the one. I kind of wish I tried on the green in the Artois MM, but I'm pretty happy that I got the black one because it does match with everything. So I would recommend you guys to, if you're going to Paris, check out the smaller boutique, especially if there's no one there. But even if there's like 1 or 2 people, I think that you can get lucky and get the bag that you want without much of a wait. And there were 3 sales associates there. They were all so nice, and they let me take my time. They let me try on other things, and I was very, very pleased with that experience. Okay, getting into the actual review of the Artois tote. So I've had this tote for a few months now, and I've actually worn it quite a bit. I wore it every single day for the last 2 months. Every single work day, I mean. So this is my everyday work tote, and I've got some pros and I've also got some cons. And then at the end of the video, I'll tell you guys how I really feel about this bag and if I think it's going to stay in my collection long term. As I already mentioned, the main pro for this bag, I think, is the zippered closure. So you can see that at the top here, there is a full zip closure on the bag, which none of the other totes have. So this is a pretty handy feature, especially if you're like me and you live in the city and you are commuting and you don't want people taking things out of your bag, because the St. Louis and the Anjou are open totes and you might have to be very, very careful, especially if you are in a busy area. So I think like security wise, this is a really big pro for the bag, and the zipper is very, very substantial and very smooth as well. I never have a hard time zipping up this bag and unzipping it. So I think that that is a great feature about the Artois MM. The second pro that I have for this bag is the coated canvas. So Goyard is pretty famous for its coated canvas, and I believe that the design here is actually hand painted, so that is quite nice. It's a really nice and durable canvas, and I really like this, especially for where I live here in Vancouver. It rains maybe like 9 or 10 months out of the year. So if I do get caught in the rain, not saying that I'm going to use this in the rain, but if I do get caught, I think I'll be fine, and I can just wipe off any of the rain or water or any stains that it might have. And I think that in terms of longevity, this will stand the test of time. I'm pretty careful about my bags and just taking care of my bags, but this one seems like fairly carefree. As I said, I use this 5 days a week over the last 2 months, and it is still looking like it is in brand new condition. The third pro of this bag is the structuredness of it. So as I mentioned, if I place a bag on a table kind of like this, it's hard to see, but if I place a bag on a table like this, it kind of just stays and it doesn't fall apart or crumble when you put it down. It stays upright. And I mentioned that that's a pro because some bags, especially the St. Louis, kind of just fold onto itself and it kind of just like falls apart. And I really like this bag because it stands on its own. And the reason for the structuredness, I believe, is the leather bits on the bottom here that I already mentioned. So it is reinforced by this leather on the sides. And I think that is a really great feature about this bag, because if I want to put my bag down, let's say at a restaurant or even at my work desk, I can kind of just like plop it there and it stands on its own rather than it like crumbling and falling apart, which I personally don't like that. And then the final pro of this bag, in my opinion, is the size. I chose the MM because it does fit everything that I need, especially in a work day. So it fits my laptop and all of my documents and my agenda and everything else that I like really need. It fits in here. It does get a little bit heavy if you put too many things in there, and I'll touch on that in the cons section of this video, but everything that I need can fit in here. And I think that it is the perfect tote bag because it's not too small. It's a very nice size bag that you can fit everything in there. And then the GM, I think, might just be a little bit too big. And you might use that, let's say, as a weekender bag or even when you're traveling. But I think this one for an everyday tote is perfect. Okay, we can't get through this video without talking about the cons, because there are cons about this bag. And the very first one I'll say is the straps. So I already talked about the strap drop, and I think that the strap drop is amazing on this bag. But what I don't like is how thin the straps are on the bag, and they kind of dig into your shoulder when you have way too many things in here. And I'm the type of person who stuffs her whole life in a big bag. So every time I carry this bag, and let's say I've got like my agenda and my laptop, it kind of just like digs into my shoulder here. You can see how thin the leather straps are. And I think that if it was thicker, it might help, but because the weight distribution, it all just goes onto your shoulder, which isn't great for long term. So this is one of the reasons why I stopped using this bag this week. I switched into my Celine tote this week just because the leather straps have actually been bothering me on this bag. If you don't overstuff your bags, or you want to carry your laptop in your hands instead of putting it in the bag, I think that you'll be fine, because the straps really do dig into your shoulder. So that is just a consideration if that's something that is important to you. And then the final con for this bag is the logos. So if you are someone who is really into logos, then I think that you are gonna love this bag. So I put the logos as a con for me, but I think that depending on who you are, this could be in your pros section. And the reason why I put mine in the con section is because of a certain season of life that I'm in. I am just in, I don't want to say quiet luxury, but I will say quiet luxury. I'm in my quiet luxury era, and that just means that I'm not really into big logos. And I know I mentioned that Goyard is still pretty understated and kind of flies under the radar, but I have noticed that people who aren't really into handbags know what this print is, what Goyard is, And I think that maybe 5 years ago, this was different, but now, especially with the rise of social media, everyone knows this print and you can spot it from a mile away. So I think that that's the reason why I put this in the con section, especially because I'm gravitating more towards bags that don't have big logos. I'll grab my Celine bag that I switched into so you guys can kind of see what I mean. So this is my Celine bag, and this was actually my very first designer handbag. So this bag means a lot to me, and I don't think I'll ever sell this bag. I think it's like the perfect bag. And other than my Loewe puzzle bag, this is my second favorite designer handbag in my collection. So you can see that it is just a leather tote and not really much going on here. And the logo is in the front, but it is just a gold hot stamping of Celine Paris, made in Italy. And if you're far away, like, you can't really tell that this is a really expensive designer handbag. It's so unassuming. It's an amazing bag. It's amazing quality. I've had this since 2017 and it still looks like it's brand new to this day. So that's really one of the reasons why I love this bag. It's very well made. But yeah, going back to this tote, you can see that there's a really big difference. The Celine one is very understated, while this one, the logo is printed all over it. And in my luxury videos, I talk a lot about how the things that we buy and the things that we wear actually send signals to the people around us, whether it's intentional or not. And it kind of like portrays or signals out a certain status to other people. I think that I unconsciously did that when I was in my Louis Vuitton era in 2020. I bought so much Louis Vuitton then, and I've sold more than half of my collection ever since. And I think that I'm doing the same thing that I did in my Louis Vuitton era with my Goyard bag. I am like unconsciously sending signals out to others that I am a certain type of person. And I think I just like caught myself because yes, this bag is very nice. It's very functional. I actually wear it every single day. It's not just on my shelf, but I'm just a regular girl who has an affinity for handbags, and I'm not a millionaire. So I do really think about cost per wear of the items that I have and the opportunity cost. So let's say I sell this bag and I make $3,000 in cash. Like, that $3,000 can go into my small business, and I could probably turn that $3,000 and make more money with it. That's kind of the opportunity cost of buying a really expensive designer handbag versus putting it into other things in life, whether it's your small business or savings or something else. To wrap up, some frequently asked questions I get about this bag is, do I recommend it? Yes, 100% I do recommend it. I know I said a lot about the cons, and most of it is actually like emotional, personal perspectives. And I don't think that everyone will have that perspective because we're all very different people and we're in different stages and seasons of life. And I think this season of my life is all about just not having too many logos, and maybe if I sell this bag, that money can go towards my small business and growing that instead. I'm not saying that I'm going to be selling this bag anytime in the future, but those are kind of just thoughts in my head of what might potentially happen with this bag. I do really love it. I think that there are more pros than cons with this bag, and as I mentioned, most of my cons are really personal things, and you might not have those things for yourself. So I would say, yes, I do really recommend this bag. I recommend Goyard in general. I think that if you don't carry a lot of things and you want a Goyard bag and it's not really for work and you'll kind of just use it casually, I think you can actually go for the St. Louis as long as you're not overstuffing it. If you are going to use it as a work bag the way that I am, I think that the Anjou or the Artois would be a better bet just because they are made with leather and they're going to be a little bit more durable than the St. Louis tote. And yeah, that is everything I had to say about this bag. If you are like me and you're kind of in your quiet luxury era or just want something that is a little bit different from the Goyard, I'm making a video about my top 5 favorite totes that I have in my collection, so you can watch out for that in the next video. And I hope that wherever you are, you're having an amazing day. Bye, you guys.